My name's Matt Teeger, although my friends all call me Teej. I'm a game director here at High Moon Studios, and what that means is I'm the person who steers the ship. I work with every discipline, programmers, audio, game designers, producers, everybody to make sure we're kind of on point for the game that we're trying to make, and really just make sure that we avoid some icebergs, but also get to a place that's pretty exciting and an awesome game. I have a kind of a non-traditional way of getting into the industry, actually. I come from science. I was a scientist. In fact, I was a marine biologist before I ever made video games. I'm about this far away from finishing my PhD in marine biology, and I'm a big fat quitter. And I was decided to leave that industry and said, well, what do I really want to do? I've always loved games. I've always been a big gamer. I used to skip classes in college to play Civilization, you know, on my 286, which was a powerhouse at the time, right? And then, you know, I was a bit more of a PC gamer, kind of through my history, but, you know, the roots of that even go backwards to pen and paper. It's a big D&D geek, all that kind of good stuff. Evolved, I think, a bit more into the console gaming, but all through that, just a big, giant geek, to be honest. I got my first game job through at Stormfront Studios in Marin, working on a game called The Legend of Alandar, which was quite frankly, it was kind of a terrible RPG, but it was my first one, and I worked super hard on it. From there, I moved on to Lord of the Rings, which I was very proud of, Lord of the Rings 2 Towers, which was a pretty well-received game. And, you know, and then kind of came down to Sammy, worked on Dark Watch, and, you know, that's how I ended up here. As far as leading a team goes and how I got to be a game director, you know, I can talk a pretty good game, maybe. You know, I've always loved games. I've always been a great gamer. And as I said earlier, I was a big, you know, D&D geek guy. So I just kind of rolled all that into, I had some sciencey background. I could talk the talk when it came to the technical side of making games a little bit. And, you know, I also have a sketch pad and I try and draw. Let's call me a crappy Renaissance man. I'm not good at anything, but I know a lot about all the different kind of pieces that it takes to make games. And I guess the other piece about it is, you know, despite the fact that I'm, as I said, the game director, the guy who drives the ship, you know, making games is a team sport. I don't think of franchise players or like this one person who makes the game and it can't be made without them. It's a team game, and so, or team sport. And so I really believe in that, and I really do my very best to encourage, foster, and create a team environment so that we, as the development team, can make the best product possible. Well, before we ever worked on War for Cybertron, we had done Dark Watch and Born as a studio. And we had done some prototypes for some other things that we wanted to do. And when we got acquired by Activision, they took a look at all that stuff and realized that our sensibilities were actually a really good fit for Transformers. This kind of action meets fantastical, you know, I think developers often get thought of in certain like specialties or genres that they're pretty good in. And so Transformers were a good fit because we could understand the intense action stuff, but also could think about these crazy mechanics. And some of the prototypes that we had done were a good fit for where Transformers needed to go. And then, you know, we had an initial kickoff with Hasbro that just could not have gone better. You know, we had done some initial designs for redesigning their characters. That's something that we wanted to do. And they just went stellar. And that foundation of our relationship, High Moon Studios and Hasbro, was just, you know, the launch pad for everything else. With Transformers, I think it's equal parts exciting and scary to work on, right? It's exciting because it's this huge universe and you have all this kind of latitude, but it's scary because there's this, you know, decades of fan, right? So as I think about Transformers, those decades of fans are incredibly important to me. I think that is the root core of who it gets really excited about this game, but that's not the only group that we're kind of creating for. So when I think about Transformers, they're the fans, the uber fans of War for Cybertron and just longtime Transformers fans. That's one voice. But then there's the gamers who maybe aren't Transformers fans, or let's call them Transformer curious, right? Or even people who are actually, well, it's Transformers, I know what those games have been in the past, and actively dismissive of Transformers. When I think about Transformers and the things that I want to bring to the table out of the video game, it's how am I serving all these different kind of people? with the big fans of Transformers, frankly, I think High Moon Studios has a lot of street cred. I think if you played War for Cybertron and you were a fan, I think we gave you what you were looking for, and we will continue to do that going forward. So we have we have amazing collections of toys here. We have guys who have loved Transformers all their lives, and so I'm feeling very confident that the story that we're telling, the nuggets, the trivia, it's all going to be there. There's the other group, which is I'm not necessarily opposed to Transformers, but there's some history there with them, and they don't immediately get excited about that brand. And that's where a lot of effort has gone on this project, to just make it be a great game. The mechanics that we put in are all really focused on how you play, what you expect, what's current in the industry, and an engaging experience all about pacing and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's what I think what War for Cybertron required was a bit of Transformers knowledge to really suck the marrow out of the story. And we're doing this real delicate dance on this one of not requiring you to know so much about Transformers in this one, so that it's less of a barrier entry, right? So things that I think about with the story are, let's assume you don't know what a Decepticon is, and don't know who an Autobot is, and you don't know the history of Optimus and Megatron. If you don't know those things, how are we kind of engaging you with the story? And that gets rolled together in, at its best, we're doing all those things at the same time. Something I think a lot about with Transformers, but also how to lead a game, is perspective. What's your perspective on the game? What's my perspective? And as game director, you're often changing your perspective all the time. So I apply that reasoning, that thinking, to all the relationships I have when creating the game, but also working with all my partners like Hasbro. They have a very different perspective than a game developer would on Transformers and how to make a great Transformers game. What they don't have is a lot of experience physically making games. And so when you put things through that kind of filter, that way of thinking, what they're really excited about with Transformers is the brand of Transformers, that they have built up this mega franchise, or this mega brand that is Transformers. And they want to make sure that their characters are treated well, and that we're telling interesting stories and growing the people who are interested in Transformers, not just catering to only the people who are already hardcore fans. So that line of thinking then led to a great relationship with Hasbro, which was, I would actually take the time to explain how games are made and just choices that we would make on War for Cybertron. And in turn, what that created was this amazing amount of respect that they had for the studio, because they got that Transformers were important to us, and we understood how important they were to them. And then that created this mutual loop of us being the game experts, them being the Transformers experts. And that foundation allowed us to just keep on building to the point where this game, the stuff that they give us latitude to do, I don't know that they would give to anybody else, because they've never had this kind of working relationship before. I think obviously the very quick and easy way to delineate what's happening in this story versus the Michael Bay movies or the Transformers Prime series, which are the other really big, especially the Michael Bay series, really big kind of popular understandings of Transformers, is this is the story of Cybertron, their homeworld, which means they're not on Earth, which means there are no humans. So what we're seeing these characters as is how they develop and become in this very human way without being the protectors of humanity, right? Without being set up with the sense of scale. This is their world for them. So when I think about what we're telling about Transformers, it's really the roots of what make Transformers Transformers. Why are the Autobots the good guys? Why are the Decepticons considered the bad guys? Without the humans in the mix, I think we have some very different challenges within our story, but it also at the same time allows the Transformers to really shine and their quirks of personality to come out, and their gameplay roles to be very carefully designed based on what their personalities are like. I think in the studio we've been extremely fortunate to work on Transformers. It's an amazing license. That is, the guardrails that Hasbro's put on us based on our relationship, and also just this huge universe, I think really allows us to treat a license like an original IP. So because we can do so much with what we're doing, visually, story, gameplay, they really trust us that I would think that we approach many of the problems of developing a game and where we're going with things much like you would an original game. That's not to mean that we never want to do original product or there's other licenses that wouldn't be a good fit for us. It's just where we're at right now, this place and time and our relationship is such that I don't know that there's a license that would be a better fit for us. I think we're fans. We've already shipped a game that was pretty solid and we have this amazing relationship. So I think where we're at right now, it's a great place for us. Where that leads us, who knows? It's a crazy industry these days.